Hi, we are going to be starting the Tree Advisory Committee meeting for July 13th at 4:04. So is there a motion? We don't call that all that. I don't know, I think I overthought this. I have a motion to call the meeting to order. We don't need that. I just called it to order, correct? Yeah. I already did. All right. Sorry. I'm going to try to take some of the things out of my mind that I have in my mind. All right. So, I know something. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Okay, I'll second. What about the minutes?
I did that out of the order. You're right. Okay. All right. I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 9th.
A second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Right, so the minutes from June 9th have been approved. And we don't have anyone here for public appearance for non-agenda items. So the next thing on the agenda is to review and approve the agenda. You have a motion to approve it as it is.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so the agenda for tonight's meeting that's in our packet has been approved. All right, our first agenda item is 5A, which is the ordinance 2023-0-11, requiring tree preservation plans to be included with preliminary plats by creating section 24-4G of Fitchburg Code of Ordinances. And we do have somebody here to speak in support of this matter.
Hi, I'm Sue Easterday, 2731 Osmondson Road. We all know each other. I'm on the Parks Commission, and I don't have any elaborate notes. I know I've got 3 minutes. I'll take less than that. Just to thank everybody and a final pep talk, because everybody's worked very hard on this issue, and especially in the last couple months has had to scramble and think about what to do, what's next. So, everybody did a great job, I think, communicating with other committees that had to review this along the way, and Common Council is last. But it'll be great to have it ahead of the committee, and I'm getting distracted by my own voice over there, so I'll try not to listen. Sorry.
Turn off your microphone and your speakers. No, on your computer.
I think I should be able to manage it. But it's like being on a phone call where you can't figure out what you're saying next. So the only thing I would encourage everybody to do is to go ahead and communicate with the Common Council now. And let your friends know if this is an issue that's important to you, and you contact your friends who you think might also care and ask them all to communicate with the Common Council. And when you do that, you ask them to put the ordinance number in the subject line of their email, and you ask people to do this if they live in the city of Fitchburg, and have them put their street address in the email itself where they would, where it's considered their signature, and be nice. And I know you're all nice, but alders get screamed at a lot, and I had my son's baseball coach said one time to the parents, get off the umpire's back because you want them on your side. So that's just a thing I know you'll do because you're all nice people when you talk to the Common Council about it. And coming there on the 25th is important too, if you can. And that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're good, Sue.
All right, so we just want to update the whole process, and I think most of you know, but just to recap, when it left the Tree Advisory Committee, as it was the Tree Preservation Ordinance, there was an administrative work group that created another draft, which was actually quite different. And both of those went to council. And then from council went to all of the city committees. So there was an amended version which reinstated the 6-inch DBH and the list of species that Tree Advisory Committee had included in their draft. And that amended version was created and approved by Plan Commission on June 20th and by CETA approved on June 29th, approved by Park Commission July 6th, and approved by the Resource Conservation Commission on July 10th. So we will be voting on it today. So is there, so I think, do I make a motion?
Linda, I think, yeah, we have a motion first on
Okay.
whether to vote on this, and then we have discussion afterwards.
Right.
So I move we vote to approve the amended draft of the tree preservation ordinance as passed by Plan Commission, CETA, Park Commission, and the Resource Conservation Commission.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry.
With discussion first, if there
Right.
are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just as a point to everybody who showed up to those various commissions and meetings, thank you very much. That was, I think, very helpful to have a strong presence there. I think that's part of why we got the support for the amended version from all of those commissions. So that was really, really helpful. But I will also reiterate what Sue said. If we want our version to go through the Common Council and get approved by them, the more of us and the more of the people we know who reach out to our alders to voice our support, I think the better. So I don't think it's going to be terribly controversial to pass this amended version, but if anybody has any questions about the process or what amendments were put in there, more specifics, happy to address those before we vote.
If you,
Well, right. And we have, Anna and I have talked this week about some of the questions that came up when we were at the meetings and some of the points that we made to the committee members, and has revised our presentation to include some of that information. So I think if Anna could go through that tonight, and then we can respond to that and see if there's anything that we suggest being edited or added.
okay, let me.
So we're hoping that this can be included in the packet for Common Council on July 25th.
So what I did was just try to take some of the feedback that we've gotten from the last round of committee meetings, and we did get quite a few questions, and so and some of them got answered in those meetings, and some of them kind of did, but kind of didn't. And so I just wanted, just for clarity, in case anyone had any questions, I just wanted to condense everything into a few slides so we all were kind of on the same page. So if I've missed something, or if something's not quite represented the way you think it should be here, please feel free to speak up. So I did want to mention that, we talk about this being in the comprehensive plan, and one thing I sort of gloss over, but it's really important, is that these three aspects, the tree diversity plan, the tree canopy goals, and the tree preservation ordinance, they're in the same policy because they work together to create the same thing. The reason we've got these in this policy is to create a vibrant and resilient urban forest, and we've been planting trees like maniacs the last 5 or 6 years. So from a tree diversity standpoint, we really have been working on that species and genera diversity, but we really can't get at age diversity in any other way than through tree preservation, because all the trees we plant are about the same age, and we really can't get around that. So if we do want middle-aged and older trees, we really do need to work on the preservation piece, and that's why this is all together in the comp plan. And we are taking the diversity and the tree canopy very seriously, and all these things go together, even though we really are focusing only on the tree preservation ordinance at this stage. Does that make sense to people? Sure.
So something like, I mean, I hope, something like a viable tree canopy requires desirable trees that are diverse in both age and species
And planting site, yeah.
and planting site.
Right, yeah, I can talk about that. Yeah, so I think that's sometimes gets a little bit lost just because we've worked on this so closely, I kind of forgot to mention that. So that's one thing I just wanted to put out there, just so folks, because there's been some questions like, oh, why is this coming up now? Well, really, it's been out there, and we're really working on all of this. It's one piece of a bigger whole, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So I think that's kind of an important point to make. Another point is just, and we all know this, but it maybe bears repeating that we get a lot of social and ecosystem services from trees, and I think having middle-aged and older trees in our community is nothing but beneficial from a lot of different aspects. And I don't need to hammer this down. And you gave me some statistics which we can add.
Right, and I thought those are very relevant, especially considering this is a pre-plat process.
Yeah.
So I suggested adding, trees help absorb the sounds of traffic in urban areas by 40%. Neighborhoods with trees are 7 to 9 degrees cooler than those without. And trees reduce energy costs up to 25% by shading buildings and protecting them from winter winds.
Yeah, perfect. And we can add that in. And so there was a question at Plan Commission if we are aware of and matching what's required in the rural residential or, outside the urban service area, and we are. We have referenced the rural residential development criteria in the past, which does require a forest management plan and a heritage tree protection plan. And just to go a little further, to the, heritage tree in that, in the rural residential criteria is defined. It's a little bit of a loose, I think, kind of wordy definition, but, it's, basically a heritage tree is defined, as a tree that's because of its age, size, type, historical association, or horticultural value, are of special importance to the city. And then significant tree is defined, any living tree that displays superior quality or characteristics when compared to other trees of the same species. And then we've got the 6-inch, there, you know what, I think it's 6-inch DBH. I think I bolded it and then unbolded it and actually deleted it from the slide. But it is, so in significant trees, which we kind of modeled our desirable trees after, in this definition are the 6-inch DBH. I'll have to fix that.
It does have this.
Does it? Oh, DBH?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Have a DBH or, I think that it's supposed to be or greater than equal to 6 inches. DBH. Yeah, anyway, all right. So, there it is. Okay. Anyway, so that just wanted to clarify that because that did come up in Plan Commission, and we are aware of that. We did model our ordinance here after what's already going on in the rural, outside the urban service area. All right. And then, so this is the future land use area of the city, and this is kind of where the species get in. The hatched marks that you can kind of see, if I think I can get this to work. I don't know. The hash marks that are, here we go, on the western side of the city right here, I guess that's the eastern side, and then here on the western side, that's where future neighborhoods are planned to come from under the current comp plan. So that's where preliminary plats in theory would be coming from, are those areas, which is a fairly distinct part of the city. And so our species list comes from what's probably there. So that's where, So that's where we get these, so what we want are the long-lived canopy trees. And so our first list, that's kind of probably what's already there. And then if we want to throw in those those other trees, the white pine, the sugar maple, honey locust, and American basswood, those are probably there, but we do know that the Quercus species are there. We know that the shagbark hickory is there, and hackberry for sure. So that's kind of the differentiation with the species. If you want to put what's most likely to be present, you can go with that first list. If you want to really get at all of the trees that are probably, all of the long-lived canopy trees that are present, then you want to tackle them all.
And Anna, all of the long-lived canopy trees likely to be present, those are all in the
Yes.
ordinance as it is, the
Yes.
amended ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
absolutely.
Can we go,
And then,
back?
yes, sorry, I
Yeah,
kind of got this out
that's-
of order. And then with the DBH, so we had said 6 originally because of, which we've already talked about, because that's when a tree is a tree, it's happy, it's not going anywhere, that matches the rural residential criteria. And then looking at this, in terms of particularly the Quercus, oaks, they're very slow growing, and it takes them a fair bit of time to get to sizable, to be sizable trees. I will say, we don't have a whole lot of Quercus that are less than, for sure, probably 16, but close to that 18 range, because our trees have not been regenerating. And especially if you look at this map, most of the trees in this area, they're either over turf, ag field, or invasive shrubs. So we don't, so for the last 100-ish years, we have not had a whole lot of regeneration happening. So there aren't a lot of small trees in this area. So that's one thing to kind of bear in mind. I don't know if that really, I know different people have a different perspective on that. But that's just something to keep in mind, is that we don't have a whole lot of small trees here because they have not been, we don't have the conditions where they regenerate. So,
And I would just say, from my perspective at least, that makes it more important to survey the ones that we do have rather than less important. Just to, depending on how it's presented, I think that could come off as, well, we don't have that many, so why are we surveying them? When I think the alternative point that I think is worth making is, if there aren't that many, those are the ones that we care about even more, so.
I think that was a concern with the version that came from the work group. I felt like it focused more on the old trees, and I'm hearing you say there are a lot of older trees there. However, there is a distinction between heritage trees and trees that we need for our canopy.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that our audience understands that, our council understands that. So, so I'm looking at the DBH chart, and I just wonder if it's valuable to include, DBH all the way up to 39 inches, or whether we want to do less of that and then add on this slide something that you had shared with us a while ago, that this information is real information because they're not estimates. If you go online, you'll find ways to calculate the age of a tree based on its DBH. But this is based on real factual evidence, as you had explained, that they actually bore into the trunk of the tree. Will they count the rings? Is that how? Yeah, so they know exactly how old the tree is. And the other important aspect of this, as you had explained it to us, is that these are regional trees.
Yeah.
These are trees that are in the same area as Fitchburg.
Yep.
So this is very accurate information. So I was hoping we could add that notation on here.
Sure.
And maybe, I don't know how everyone else feels, but I don't know if we need to include that many tree sizes past 18 inches.
yeah, I mean, we can, it's really dealer's choice. If we want to cut it off, we can. I will just add that the reason that this is important information is because there's a couple of different ways to estimate tree age. And one is to put, core of the tree, count the rings. That's the most accurate. You're going to get a really good idea of how old the tree is at that point. All of this data was taken from trees that were cored. The other way is to use what's called like a growth factor. So you multiply the DBH by a particular growth factor for a particular species, but that's pretty general and it's not particularly accurate, because if you have a tree that's growing, in a poor site, it's not going to grow as fast, or in a tree in a better site, it's going to grow faster. So it's not particularly accurate. And this information came from the Morton Arboretum, and they measured trees in basically, there's the forest reserves around Chicago, which aren't that far from here, and that's where they got all this data. So it's pretty regional to us.
I think the other question I had is that I'm wondering if council members will want to know, well, how old is a 6-inch DBH tree? And is there a way that we can give them an estimate? If it doesn't include 6-inch DBH in this, is it around 20 to 40 years typically?
Probably, around here, probably.
Yeah, so maybe even if we could include that statement, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah. We don't have a whole lot of them, but yeah, I mean, when Emily and I went to look for different tree sizes, we had a really hard time finding anything. We had a hard time finding a 12-inch tree, and we found one in S.C. Johnson, and everything else was pretty much bigger than that. There was a few smaller trees in McGaw, but it's tough to find those smaller trees.
And I think that's a major concern, of
It
course,
is.
in trying to grow our canopy, especially when we're losing a lot. We've lost a lot, and we continue to lose a lot. And we can't just have new plantings and heritage trees.
Right.
We can't just have those two extremes.
Right.
So
Right.
could we include those other two pieces of information, either on this or in a subsequent?
Yeah, I want to make it compelling. Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay.
On the other hand, neighborhoods have trees of all different sizes, so it might be the situation with the public trees, but homes and everything have a lot of trees of the intermediate sizes.
And I'm thinking that, just as Anna had described, how we are building on what's already there, and once this ordinance passes, then that will be part of what we're building on. So I want to use good language, as we're going ahead. I'm sure there'll be other preservation plans after this. This won't be the only one.
I agree. I would like to see data on the 6-inch trees, even if it isn't necessarily accurate, because I think some people don't understand that a 6-inch tree might already be pretty old, and it, has value just because of its age. It's not like you can just plant a few saplings and consider yourself done. If you take down a 6-inch tree, it's going to take a long time to replace it.
Yeah.
Is it possible to, so this just came from the Morton Arboretum.
It did, yeah.
I was wondering if it would be possible somehow to include 6 and 8-inch somewhere, somehow. And this is their graphic, so I don't know, but.
Yeah, even if you have to keep it separate, because I can see that the data for the 6 and 8 might not be from the same source and might not be as accurate.
Yeah.
But I think it should be there. And you can say, well, this is an estimate because the data's not as good. But I would like to see it there.
Yeah, I think if we go in with this and it starts at 10, then the question is going to be, well, why do we have to have 6 then?
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that also.
My guess is they probably couldn't find smaller trees.
Well, again, I think the language we're using and the way we're establishing this is really important in our future as we move ahead in the city as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll work on that. Because I want it to be really good information. So we'll figure that out.
What's the age of trees typically when you plant them?
So you bring up a good point. So the trees that we plant typically, they're from the nursery industry, and they are grown, often they're grafted. So they're grown on rootstock that's actually older than the rest of the tree. So the rootstock is probably a couple years older than the rest of the tree. So they're usually between 6 and 8 years old, but the root is probably a little bit older than that.
And my understanding, if this is accurate, is that typically if you purchase a tree larger than 3 to 4-inch DBH typically is not, you don't purchase for new planting. It's typically the maximum size. And then once it's well established, which is 3 to 5 years probably, then that's about 6 inches. So that's why well-established trees are so valuable.
Yeah. And nursery trees are measured in caliper, which is measured at the base, and we plant between 1.5 inches and 1 3/4 inches caliper, which wouldn't even be 2 inches DBH. I mean, that's pretty small. They're too small to even measure from a DBH perspective. So.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
Since I really don't know much and I'm new, What does DBH stand for?
Great
Because you
question.
guys use that word a lot, and I'm,
Good question. That's an excellent question.
and I have a feeling that they're going to be
Okay.
asking that too.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So, would you answer that and then figure out, then we should probably include something in
Yes.
here? Again, I know that was in that first packet, but.
Yeah, so it's diameter at breast height, so which is 4.5 feet off the ground. So when you're measuring a tree that's not a nursery tree, so you're supposed to measure it at 4.5 feet off the ground, which is kind of a weird place, but that's where you measure it, and that's where you put your tape around. And a DBH tape has already got the diameter calculation done, so and I can bring a DBH tape. I should bring one now, and so you put the tree, the top of it in front of you, and you bring it around, and that's why. So in the visuals you have, you've got me kind of crossing it, and that's how you measure. So you see exactly where the DBH is. And we measured and Emily and we measured 4.5 feet off the ground with a tape measure, and then we had the DBH tape at that location. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great question.
It is a
Thank
great
you.
question.
I mean, thank you for listening. I mean, because actually, you're in a great position to ask the questions that we're not answering right now.
Well, see, and that's a perfect example of how, like, we've been working at this so long. Like, we're just talking, like, just going berserk, and we need to be clear. And so that's a great example. So,
Is
yeah.
there anything else, Shannon, up till now that you could think of that doesn't seem?
Okay.
I have a comment since this slide is still up. There was a kind of tense exchange at the RCC meeting about why other species of trees weren't included, in particular beech, birch, cottonwood, and other evergreens. What was it? Oh, cedar was mentioned. I was wondering, since you weren't there to answer the question, so I just hope that if it comes up at the Common Council, someone will be there to address that question.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And so most of the species mentioned at RCC, they're not canopy trees, or they're not native, or they're not. So for example, cottonwood, that's a tree that there's actually there was a movement before I started to ban it from being planted because of the nuisance of the actual cotton. So that's not one we would definitely want to preserve. And it's also not a kind of tree that could take construction activities, and it grows in very wet areas. So anyway, so I guess, so the species mentioned, like birch it's an early successional tree. It's not a canopy tree. I think ironwood was also mentioned, and ironwood is also not a canopy tree, and also not very long-lived, and probably isn't present, in these
What do you mean
areas.
is not a canopy tree? What does that mean?
It's a medium-sized tree, not a large tree.
So you don't count the leaves that they produce, doesn't count toward the canopy?
Yes, exactly. Yes, they fill
They're
in.
bushier.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I thought any kind of tree counted, but it doesn't.
Well, it would count for canopy, but it isn't the kind of tree. It grows typically in the understory. So they grow under other trees typically, and so you're not going to typically have, in the areas that we're talking about where the plants would come from, you're not going to have this huge ironwood tree out by itself. That's just not the way that tree functions in the environment. It's an understory tree, and it typically grows in the shade of other trees. So if you're saving the oak that it's growing under, you'd also be saving that tree too. But it's not something that you're gonna necessarily seek out.
Okay.
Am I correct in thinking, I believe also part of the rationale was just if these trees are faster growing and also smaller at full maturity, then a 6-inch DBH one might be towards the end of its life already anyway.
Right.
So surveying it and trying to save, those ones once they get to that point is still admirable, and we would like that, but less the focus for what we were trying to do with this specific ordinance.
Yes, they're not very long-lived, exactly, yeah.
And we certainly are not discouraging a lack of preservation for any well-established trees. It's
Right.
so preserving more is always good.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think too, from like the perspective of maybe from the council or just other people, that too, if you try to save every tree, you know,
Right,
it's not, nobody's gonna be able to build anywhere,
right.
you know? And I think that would make it more difficult for the ordinance to pass.
Yes, right. And that's not the point of it.
And sometimes, you know, having too many trees in one space is not good either.
Right, right, yeah. All right, and so, and so we were asked to have some local examples, and we could maybe get to the Willamette one as well, but, and we were told not to talk about one from the eastern part of the state.
there was-
It's fine. It's fine, whatever it takes.
You mean Mequon, who has a wonderful, wonderful city policy
Yep,
about trees? Yeah.
That's the one. And Wilmette is a lot like Mequon. So
Is
anyway,
it?
so
So
I
we-
did throw City of Madison in here. They've got a lot of tree ordinances. They're all listed there. But the one that is probably the most relevant and the one that's most recent is their, that you have to have a permit for removal or pruning of oak trees, even on private property. And they tend to say, you can't do that. So anyway, so that's an interesting thing that the City of Madison does. And then, of course, we've got the town of Dunn to our east with their ordinance. And then Onalaska is a nice example because they are trying to preserve trees for, during construction for property value purposes. So that's kind of a nice one to look at too. Anyway, so that's sort of, I guess, the summary of what's happening in other states. I think that's kind of, or other municipalities. I think that's all I put together. Yes. So anyway, so I'm not sure if I got all the questions or not. I think I kind of try to capture most of the questions people might have. You know, you're never going to answer every question, I guess, with a few slides. But so I appreciate the comments here. I'll see what I can do in terms of incorporating some of this additional information. And
Yeah, and I was just thinking maybe a summarizing last statement, just either referring back to the fact that this amended ordinance should actually respond to the directive from the city comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
And that it would also, we already know, it also meets the requirement for us to,
Tree City of the World.
for a Tree City of the World award.
And one question I have is for the areas where they plan to do building, are most of those areas, farm fields?
Well, if you look at this map, I mean, there's a fair bit of farm field in there. There's some woodlot. It's kind of a mix.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I don't know how much of this is consistently in ag, because sometimes that changes a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, there's also some nice oak woodland through the middle of that. So, yeah, I mean, it really, it depends, and it changes all the time. So, anyway, so that's kind of some of the things that I put together. I'll try and add the comments that you guys raised, which I thought were really good, and we'll see if we can get this out for public consumption. I would also like to add, well, I guess, did you guys see the Fitchburg Star did publish an article? They did. I printed it off and put it up there for you.
Do you want to pass it around?
I think it just came out
The
because I
public
did.
can see it, it's in the newspaper,
Yeah.
in the Fitchburg Star.
I don't think so.
Around, is that?
Well, I just quick printed one before I came down here, just so you guys could see it.
Oh, cool. Did you have a chance to read this?
So it just speaks about this process, yeah.
No, that tree is from on Lacey Road. So we're doing a tree preservation project right now. The city is on Lacey Road, and that's one of those trees. And we were watering it, and that's yeah. And so during the drought, we were watering them just to make sure they were gonna make it. And we watered them with a fire hose and a dump truck full of water or a snow plow. Anyway, so whatever it takes, I guess. So that's the picture on there.
I'm sorry, Anna, they inaccurately attributed that photo to me because I forwarded it on from you, so I
Don't
got
worry.
credit for that one. but
Don't worry.
It was not mine, so.
That's okay. That's okay. That's fine.
The only thing other than, I think that I was thinking that we might want to include is just what is a preservation plan?
Oh,
So, I think that's
Yes.
really important, and I dealt with
Yeah.
that as the president of our neighborhood association, when somebody wanted, a business wanted to put optic fiber in. So I actually went to the city website where you have incredibly good information, and you actually, it's a little hard to find,
Yeah.
but you have this information from the Arboriculture
Yep.
Association that describes very clearly how you protect trees during construction. And it's things that I did not intuitively know. It's like you don't put heavy equipment
Nope.
in the critical root system around a
Right.
tree because it can damage the root system.
Right.
And the other big piece of this information is that the tree preservation plan includes some visible fencing off of the area at the construction site, because people that are working don't know all of that. So creating a plan and then having visible barriers about what area should be protected during construction is what preserves and protects trees.
Yes, and having them on the plans, like our little tree preservation zone that's on the plans, which is nice. So anyone looking at the plan set's like, oh, what's this? Oh, tree protection zone. Oh, okay, there it is. So, and it's orange for a reason.
Of course.
So, and we're, out there with our high vis, out there looking at it all the time. So, anyway. All right. So I guess that's kind of a, I wonder if I could put that picture in here. Maybe I'll try to do that. Anyway.
Yeah. So
Okay.
is
So
there any
that's,
other important questions that, or anything else anybody can think of that council might ask? I will be there, so.
I actually think that what you have now is pretty perfect, and I think we should avoid over answering questions as well, because we want the presentation to kind of, we don't want it to be bloated, I
Right.
guess. So
Right.
having it answer the key questions, and then we can always answer other ones that come up in the conversation. But
Right.
I think what you have is really good.
Yep.
I'm just trying to highlight what we've already, compellingly highlight what we've already said and new information as appropriate. So, all right, well, great, awesome. So thanks for the feedback on that.
So are we ready to make a motion to vote on the amended tree preservation ordinance?
I think we already have a motion that's open. We just have to, you have to call
Okay.
the vote.
All right. So then we will vote, all in favor of this amended version of ordinance 2023-0-11, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So it is approved unanimously.
Who made the motion? Great. And then
Yeah,
who
it
seconded?
was a while back.
And then who seconded? Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for all the work you've done. All right, next is very exciting also, and that's the 2024 budget. Do you want to go through it, Anna?
I can.
Is that the, I mean, well, there's many really positive things about it. The- And
It doesn't matter. Whomever wants it can have it.
And one of the things included is an increase, a recommended increase in city forester naturalist position to 100%. It's 80% now, and it would be a recommendation from the department chair to increase it to 100%. I'm very excited about that.
That's, yeah. I think, what the heck, come on. It's telling me the agenda cannot be loaded.
I
Well,
have a hard copy.
no, I mean, I know, but I want to get all the packet information so you guys can see it. Anyway, so yes, yes, that is the big highlight of the budget. Nothing else is changing too much as far as I can tell. Come on. I'm trying to bring all this stuff up so you can actually see what we're talking about. when I get my own laptop, I will feel like I died and went to heaven. Like, I would just be like, oh, wow.
Hopefully you'll get it before then, but
Anyway, sometimes I wonder. It is, I know. Hopefully this is loading so I can actually show you guys. But yeah, so the budget, it's very similar to, I'm not sure why this is not working. This is a little weird. Okay. All right.
yeah.
I think I stopped sharing the screen, right? Yeah.
He's coming. It's new.
Okay. Okay, that's, yeah. So part of the reason, so anyway, we'll see if I can pull it up here, but we have to use particular software to do all of our agenda/packet stuff, and last Friday I got updated, and that's why I got your packet out to you a little bit later, because I wanted to have that Park Commission version of the, still not do this. Anyway, I just wanted to have the approved Park Commission version in your packet, and that was last Thursday, and so Friday on base wasn't available, so that's why I got it to you on Monday. Anyway, this is not coming up for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's on base or if it's me or.
Would you like this hard copy for reference?
Well, I mean, so you guys, so I was just gonna go through the budget so you guys could actually see it. But you've got it all in your packet, I guess. I could maybe bring that up from my email, but anyway. There's, I guess if you, in terms of the, where is this here?
And I had the PDF. I just sent you an email that has the attachment there. You might be able to open it from that since the city agendas are down.
Okay. All right. That might actually work.
I wasn't on the Zoom where I would have shared it from there.
Okay. All right. Anyway, it's not like the end of the world here, I guess, but, okay. I think I've got it.
It's
All right.
important.
It is important. All right. Okay, so that's. What did I do here? So embarrassing. Jeez. Anyway, I had it up here and then now I don't see it. All right. Where is? Anyway, it's kind of an exciting, so annoying.
Would it help if I emailed it to you?
Well, that's not true. I had my email up, and now that closed too. I'm just like, what the heck? So anyway, it is in your packet. The big highlight for the budget is for the proposal to make the okay, yes, confirm, yes, to make the Forester position full-time. So that's the big highlight. It will take probably some advocacy to make that happen.
Take some what?
Advocacy.
Oh.
And that will be, does that go to council on August 3rd? Is that, what is it? No.
Okay. I am not sure what the time frame is.
I thought it was August 3rd.
Do you know, Shannon?
I'm not sure it's come out yet.
Seems like that's what Scott said the anticipated date was, but I'm not sure. We can certainly let the committee know.
Yeah, in our August meeting, we can definitely let the committee know.
Well, that would be the 10th, so.
I'm gonna try this one more time. Like, this is just insane. Like, whatever, it's just how it goes. Let's see. Oh my gosh, why is it setting things? All right.
Here comes Coach.
Yeah, so I think I've got it up here, and now I want to share the screen. So then I go to Zoom, right, and share the screen? And then go.
Down at the bottom. Just pull this window up so you can see the bottom.
There we go.
Share screen.
There we go. And then it's this,
There.
the share.
Actually,
Okay, here we go. Thank you. I don't know why that took so long. I apologize. I think part of it is, anyway. So down here, we have the budget information. There's the minutes, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so that's what we just put it on. Thank you for your patience. This is more information. Me measuring trees, blah, blah, blah. All right, so this is, okay, whoops.
so actually, he said, Scott said that the budget's due in finance, to the finance committee,
there we
July
go.
27th.
Yes, so, yes, so this is the 2024 operating budget that we're finally getting to look at. So the big highlight is making the urban forester naturalist position full-time, and shelter rentals, I'm not sure anyone here is that concerned with that. Here is the budget detail. So, of course, the first thing is for the TAC meetings. We are at 8 meetings a year. I don't know that we want to change that. The things relevant for this committee, other services, the 290 account. So we added some money in there for Town of Madison large tree removal and also replacement of dead trees, and we're increasing a little bit of the money for prairie burns, because that's been going up in cost. I don't think this really affects this committee too much. We still have our money for the Arbor Day trees. Forestry supplies, we went up to $1,000. We went up $1,000. So it's pretty much the same. It's not, the changes are pretty minimal. I mean, the big ticket item is, the additional hours for the urban forester naturalist. And then also just adding money in for Town of Madison operating costs. And one thing I will comment is if you compare our budget to other similar-sized municipalities, we're really low. So anyway, so that's kind of the big changes. We did do a staffing study. The city did a staffing study that is supposed to be coming out soon, and I'm really hoping that that making the position I hold full-time is in there as just kind of frosting on the cake to make that happen. I haven't seen that, what they've put together. It was Baker Tilly who put that together. I haven't seen that yet, but hopefully when that comes out, it's supposed to come out in the first week in August, so we'll have that in time to really influence this process. So anyway, are there any questions about the operating budget or anything of that nature?
Why is our budget much lower than comparable municipalities?
I don't know. We just have an interesting situation where we're a customer of Public Works, which I've never really been able to wrap my mind on. So we have no staff. We have to ask Public Works for everything, which is kind of odd. And so for example, the guy who supervises the people who do all the forestry work, he works for Public Works. So we're in different lines of supervision. So it's kind of it's just an odd situation. And I think that's part of it. I don't really know. And how that came to be, that architecture, I don't know at all. But it's kind of a bizarre situation in my mind.
So typically, it would be organized how?
Typically, the forester would either be in Public Works with everyone who does that work, or they'd have their own department.
Do you have that broken down? I think, did you just rewrite, was there just a rewriting of your job description? Mm-hmm. Is that something that we could get?
I can email it to you.
Okay. Because I remember the conversation that a lot of your work, well, some of it's in the park departments, but a lot of it's in other departments throughout the city. A lot of it.
Works, huge amount. Huge amount.
Do you have an idea what percentages though that is?
Probably at least half.
Half in Public Works and half in Park?
Probably.
Okay. I know when we talked about that before, we kind of wondered about funding sources, if there's
Yeah.
a greater need for personnel in the future, where that would come from, and should that come all out of parks or maybe out of Public Works?
Or just have a forestry its own thing, because we really don't. I mean, when we review the park and open space plan, it's just like, where does forestry fit into here, and it isn't there. So we're kind of tacked on to, Parks and Rec, and that's usually not the case.
So usually cities have a separate forestry department.
Or it's in Public Works.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm really happy to see the recommendation for 100%.
Yeah.
For city forester.
It's definitely needed. There's a lot that we just don't get done. And a lot of that's volunteer management, a lot of that's writing grants, a lot of that is stuff that's really value added, because we're so busy running around just trying to keep our heads above water.
And I know we've talked about this before, the fact that there isn't a big budget for new plantings either. And so you are always looking for new sources
Yeah.
for both new plantings and for labor.
Yeah, that's
through
true.
nonprofit and through the state or county.
Yeah,
But a lot of your time quite a bit of time is spent on that as well.
Yeah, like we worked with the county to get all those Arbor Day trees that we got at no cost. But yeah, so our tree planting budget is, where is it here? Neighborhood forestry is $35,000, and that includes tree replacement, that includes new plantings, that includes emerald ash borer treatment, that includes everything. And just by comparison, so we have budgeted $35,500 for neighborhood forestry. We spend $94.25 on median mowing. So, I mean, it's just kind of an interesting, it's just kind of interesting, I guess, so.
Well, change
And-
takes time, but.
Yeah, so, anyway, that's kind of the budget in a nutshell. Thanks for your patience and, being able to show it to you. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
This is maybe more a question for Shannon, but what is the advocacy process that we should be considering for, I think many of us maybe are less familiar with how that budget process works, and making sure that we're putting our efforts in the right place for supporting this new full-time part of the budget.
Well, generally, if you have the department heads come up and say, hey, we need this, it makes it look better for you, as far as if, because if you come up with, say, they ask for something totally different, and then you come up later on for say, a budget amendment, and you say, well, we want this.
And that happened last
The
year.
first thing they're going to say is, well, why didn't the department heads
Right.
ask for it if that's so needed? That will be the first thing that is said.
And that is coming from Scott now,
So
so that was the big
that's a good thing.
Okay,
Fantastic, thanks.
good, yep.
So is this getting approved at the same meeting as our ordinance is up? No.
No, I'm not sure the budget process. So this is due to finance the 27th, which is next week, and then I don't know what the hearing schedule is. It's usually through August, right? And then, it doesn't get finally approved until November typically, because it has to go to council and then get referred out and then back to council, and so it's a pretty long process. So, no, I would say not, no.
All right, good. Well, thank you for including this on the agenda. Very
You're
important.
welcome. Thanks for hanging out while I figured out how to get it on the screen.
Yeah. Well, it was important.
Yeah, it is important.
All right, next on the agenda is report from the department.
So I think I emailed one to you guys that's got a bunch of stuff in it. We've been watering trees like crazy. I was so grateful it finally rained. But we will lose a lot of trees, and I don't know what to say about it. I really don't.
You think we'll lose a lot, you said?
Yes.
Of the young planted ones from the last few years?
We planted about 2,000 trees in the last 4 years.
Well, I've even seen a tree that was really healthy until 3 weeks ago, and so we started watering it, and it still doesn't look good, and it's probably 8 years old or more.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it's
It was the thing about this drought that we're experiencing now that's not, it's nice we got some rain, but it's not quite over, is that the trees leafed out. We came into it dry, right? We had 2 pretty dry winters. We got enough moisture last year, but we didn't have any to spare. We had pretty much a winter drought. We were really below in moisture till we got that foot of snow in April, which, melted pretty quickly. But at any rate, so then we had, some soil moisture, trees leafed out, and then there was nothing. So they put all their energy into leaves, and then there was nothing. It didn't rain hardly at all in May, not hardly at all in June. And then we got, yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever it was, we got through a lot of July without any rain, and it was really hot. So that's really hard on young trees. And we watered what we could, but when you got 2,000 trees out there, they need water.
yeah.
It's
I was
tough.
wondering that. How do you is there personnel that gets deferred from the mowing because there's less mowing, or how does that work that you?
Well, so that's a really good question. I said to Public Works pretty pleased, hey, do you think you could please water some trees? And I kind of came up with a priority list. And, they tried, but they were still mowing, which was interesting. And plus, there's never a shortage of stuff to do. So I think they ran around and did what they could, but it's pretty labor intensive because you have to fill up, even if you have 1,000 gallons of water, that doesn't really go very far. And if you're hauling all that water around, it takes a lot of time. And then you're spending a lot of time filling up tanks is what you're doing. So it takes a lot of time. And I think they're doing what they can, which is awesome.
Have you thought of coordinating with the Forester in Madison and getting it in the news so people
We did.
water their terrace trees?
We
That really
did.
should have been done earlier in
We
June,
did.
et cetera. But I
We
don't
did.
remember seeing it or hearing much.
Well, it's on
Not
the
that I
city
watch the news
website.
all the time, but when I do go and watch the news just to see how droughty things are, they don't remember to water your trees or anything.
I wish they would. We got it out there as much as we could. We did it in June. And we did another message, I think 2 weeks ago. So, we're doing, and we don't have this awesome, robust communications program here at City of Fitchburg for whatever reason. So, we got it out in the social medias, and we got it out as much as we could and out to neighborhoods and et cetera, et cetera. It didn't get as much traction as I thought it would, but we definitely tried to get it out there and tell people to water their trees and had pictures and how to do it.
How many gallons would, some of the young trees, from the last 4
I
years
would say
require?
10, 3 times a week.
10 gallons 3 times a week?
And partly because the air was so dry. There was just no moisture.
I follow some social media like Nextdoor, and then I'm also at the library a lot, and I look at the posters, and I did not see any of those notices. So maybe it would be good to think about posting in different places.
See, and I don't have control over that. I just have to give it to our person, and she does it. But, yeah. And I try to get it out to a lot of different people to put in their neighborhood stuff, too. So if you have good avenues, yeah. And I think the city's working on a communications plan, because this is just a primary example. We're trying to get the word out to people.
Yeah, I know it was on the homepage of the city site.
Yeah.
I did see it there.
Yeah.
What about the big older trees, the really
Yeah,
large ones?
they could use some water.
Okay.
And you see sometimes with especially oak trees, you'll see some dead wood in the crown, and that's from the way that the tree takes water up. If that gets broken, if there gets to be an air bubble in there because the tree was sucking up not enough water, then the top of the tree will kind of die off, and you see that, unfortunately, and it looks like little horns sticking out of the top of the tree. So yeah, I mean, trees need water, and I'm grateful that we got that rain. It was a really great slow soak that we got. I think it was Wednesday. I guess it was yesterday. But we could use more. We could use a lot more. Right? Yeah, which would be great. Which would be really great.
All right. All right, anything else that we want to discuss with that right now? Otherwise, we can move on to the next one, which is announcements. And, the one for certain we want to make is just that we're going to switch our meetings from October, our tree advisory committee meeting from October to August. And you want to explain a little bit why you recommended that?
Yeah, so the Park and Open Space Plan will be going to Park Commission, and they want to bring it to this body too. And if we wait till October, we'll miss the boat on being able to comment on the first draft of that plan. So if we meet in August instead of October, we can have a crack at taking a look and commenting on the Park and Open Space Plan, which is, I think, pretty important. And there's probably, there'll be budget information at that meeting then too.
Okay, great. All right, so that'll be August 10th.
Would anyone speak to us, or would we just have materials that we would look at?
Depends on what you want. I mean, Brad could potentially, the planner who wrote it could potentially come if we asked him. Is that what you're asking for?
I guess it's up to you. I don't know that I've seen one to know if it needs to be explained or if it's kind of self-evident. I would leave it to your judgment if that would be helpful. Just even a 5-10 minute kind of, here's what's new or different, and here's why we're doing X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm. That might be helpful. I think, yeah, I mean, it's a good document. I'll ask him.
Thank you, both.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess I can
All right.
share in the budget.
Any other announcements?
I'll just reiterate July 25th, Common Council meeting. That's when they're going to be voting on the ordinance, so the more people, the better.
Okay. I have a motion to adjourn.
So
So-
moved.
Okay.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, this meeting is adjourned.